There we go, sir.
Okay, we'll start tonight's City of Olivet's Planning and Community Design Commission for April 17th to order. Mr. Secretary, please call the roll.
Member Tim Spiegelglass,
Present.
member Laura Ragsdale, currently absent but potentially present shortly. Member Petrie Powell,
Present.
Secretary Sam Wallach, present. Vice Chairman Brian Lewis,
Present.
and Chairman Rob Dragell.
Present. Let it also be known that our city council liaison, Mayor Missy Waldman, is in attendance, as well as our staff liaisons, Carlos Trejas, Olivet's Planning and Community Development Department's Director. Is Dawn here? Dawn
She'll
is
be
not
in a couple of minutes.
Okay. Dawn Doty will be here, and Jack Carswell, Planning and Zoning Administrator. Glad to have you back, Jack. All right. Anybody else that I'm missing online, Carlos, that I need to announce?
No, sir.
All right, good, good, good. Well, thanks everybody for being in attendance. We appreciate you guys being here. For those who have never been to a planning and zoning, we follow the agenda the agenda kind of item by item. There'll be a time for public comments in the beginning. These are for items that are not on the agenda. If you do have a public comment that's related to the agenda item, we'll first go through that agenda item with a staff review. There'll be some question and answers among commission members to staff. Then we typically bring on the petitioner, and then there'll be a time for public comments there. We do ask that everybody who does approach the podium to state their name and address for the record. And for the public comments related to the general as well as the agenda items, we ask that those be no more than 3 minutes to be respectful of everybody's time and to keep the meeting moving along. With a full agenda like tonight, it's going to be a long night. So we appreciate everybody's help in moving this along. For those that are online and you have a public comment, there's usually a button at the bottom of the screen that you can raise your hand. And we ask you at that appropriate time when we ask for public comments to hit that button, raise your hand, and we can bring you onto the panel. When that happens, the microphone as well as the video will be turned off. We do ask you to turn those on and to be looking for that when that happens, because by default they're turned off. It'll help move things along that way. All right, great. So Carlos, did I miss anything?
No, sir. I believe you got everything covered.
Okay, so anybody in the audience have any public comments that are not related to an agenda item? And make sure you hit the talk button so the light pops up.
Christina Hansen, 817 North Price. I was wondering if there was any update on Aldi and their late night unloading of trucks and banging trash and other loud noises.
Carlos?
Yes, we did look over the developers agreement, and there are some conditions regarding the loading and unloading. And there we brought that to their attention. We also noted to the police department if there are any calls, because those need to be reported to the non-emergency number.
Okay.
So they get recorded. So far, the only person we've heard from has been you. And we'd like to get a little bit a bigger paper trail.
And what
in that
was
process.
in the developers agreement, if you don't
That I
mind?
couldn't tell you offhand. I don't know if the mayor recalls specifically.
The bringing in of items were to be in the morning time. I believe it was like 6 to 8 is my recollection, but I would have to look further at that. We did ask the city to do what Carlos has described to you, and hopefully we won't hear from you again. But like Carlos said, if it happens again, you do need to let us know, because we have informed.
Okay,
Okay?
thank you.
Carlos, how receptive were they?
And
When
there,
you talked to them?
yeah, it was no problem. We're also trying to pin down where the exact noise is coming from, if it
Yeah,
is
yeah.
from that site or not. We just informed them about the hours
Good,
and
good,
all
good.
that. And then we've been looking at the shops next door to see if there was any activity also going on that side.
Right,
So-
right. Okay, great, great. Thank you. Okay, anyone else in the audience have any public comments? Seeing none, Carlos, will you please check online?
So far, the only person I see online has an agenda item, or is representing an agenda item.
Okay, okay. Why don't we just wait a little while?
And Ms. Ragsdale just pulled up,
All right.
and I can just kind of go ahead and give some public information just to make sure.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. Just want to inform everybody, we have a couple of developers here. The city will be adopting the 2021 ICC codes, both the International Building Code and the International Residential Code, along with the remaining sets of codes as listed up here on the slide, including energy conservation, existing building, property maintenance, swimming pool and spa, and solar energy provisions. Those will be brought to the council for adoption in June and become effective July 1st. It is required by state statute that we provide a 90-day notice, and we posted that information in our boards back in March. In addition to that, we are asking the council to consider a change to our fee schedule. We haven't amended our fee schedule since 2015. So those will be going to the council in June, and then all to be effective July 1 of this year. Also remember, we have the 2024 comprehensive plan update that is posted on our website, and always, encourage the commission and the community to understand that sets our goals and objectives that were developed through a community building process and it's our role here to be the stewards of that and push forward these goals and objectives and there is a overall mission statement about Olivet as a vibrant and unique city, strengthened by its diverse population, invigorated by its opportunities for community connection, and distinguished by its dynamic sense of place. Each of those bolded items are further described or defined within the plan, and then the plan sets out the city's goals and objectives for a community for the next 20 years. Also want to encourage developers, we're supposed to get another weekend's worth of rain, to be vigilant about your stormwater siltation controls on the sites. This was from 2 weeks ago, where again, the siltation was in place, but it got overwhelmed by the volume of water and rain we received in there. I don't think this weekend is supposed to be as bad, but please be courteous to your neighbors, your residents, just like the adjacent properties. Be mindful, respectful, and make sure you check those siltation fencings and get those controls in place.
Good. Thanks, Carlos.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate it. Okay, Laura, just to bring you up to speed, we just went through public comments. So we're moving on to old business right now.
Thank you.
So, and we're going to be on item A, 820 North Price Road. Carlos?
All right, so we received additional plans this weekend. You have those in your packet. And they're the latest set. It includes a couple of perspectives, some of the additional drawings, part of the submission criteria. Overall, I think it's okay to say that, there's no significant changes since the reorientation that we saw last month of the garage structure. Everything is pretty much the same, except the additional information and things have gotten clarified in there. If not, you have your streetscapes and cross sections in the process. At the consent of the petitioner, they did grant the commission a 90-day extension, so the commission has to act no later than May 1st. I think given the plan set that we received, I think we're set. I don't anticipate any other changes, and I think the commission is well within its purview to consider some form or action at tonight's meeting. Throughout the process, there's been an opportunity for not just comments by the developer, but for public comments, for discussion on the commission, and some core things that, want the minutes to reflect that were discussed. In terms of accessory structures or any structure in general, what does the code authorize? How our accessory code was written, and what is the review process? Again, the code for accessory structures is primarily written to restrict, what can be done administratively. After that, it leaves the commission within the authority through community design and site plan review to consider things in excess of the numerical numbers that are defined within the code in there. And it doesn't put a limitation. Again, the limitation is your design review, meaning that each individual member can have a difference in opinion or view of the structure. The one thing that I will note, the way the code is written, again, every property owner in the city of Olivet that owns single-family residential property is permitted accessory structures in there, and that is by right. Those that wish to exceed the limitations that are placed on staff for approval are subject to commission review. The approval of those that exceed is not guaranteed by right. It is through a consensus through the commission. And it is through the commission following its process in its guidelines and also considering the conditions in the site plan review process in there. And it is subjective, and the goal here is for the commission to build some type of consensus and render some type of decision in that process. I think the main thing and again, there is a right to build an accessory structure or even a new home on the property, but it may necessarily be the one that you want as you go through the process. And that consideration factors are, this process, including public comment, the consideration of the neighboring properties, consideration of the streetscape, consideration of the neighborhood, the subdivision, and then our community as a whole in there. So we've gone through this process quite some time. The design specifically, has gotten tweaked, but there has been no significant changes in there. And I'm not sure if the commission is struggling or going on the guidance of staff that there were still additional criteria that needed to be submitted to be able to conduct a full assessment of the impact of the structures that are proposed. The other things we've discussed is what is an accessory structure? And that is defined through something that is subordinate to, and you get to the next phase. Well, what is subordinate? Is being 1 inch shorter subordinate to the other, or is it a larger degree? There is no defined aspect in the commission. It requires, again, this process of design review. What may be considered subordinate in one condition may not be considered subordinate in the other. That is okay as long as there is a consensus from the commission or overall decision of the majority of the commission of what they feel within the context is subordinate. We talked about design mitigation and the guidelines and the issues, whether this structure, it's not necessarily what's within the structure itself. It's that this is a 2-level structure. It is a 2-story structure, or it is a taller structure. There is nothing wrong within that, so long as the design is mitigated through our guidelines, and in doing so, considering the site plan review process. I think that's where it goes down to is, what steps has the petitioner taken to mitigate that design to fit within the context of the site and the existing home and the surrounding neighborhood in there. And that discussion, I think we've gone through in there, and we saw, from our last meeting in April, was that there was a reorientation of the structure in there. There is also requirements for stormwater management. Those can be handled administratively, but those are required to be a detention system in place. We talked about the trees and the tree mitigation and protection in there. So I think we've had those discussions. The petitioners here, if there are highlights that they want to go over in terms of they're not revisions that have been submitted, but additional information to look at and view the structure to determine its compatibility with the surrounding area. Again, I think in this case, in no way is there a restriction regarding having an accessory structure on this site. The view here, the purpose that this petition is here for, is this the right structure in context of design for this site or the neighborhood? And there is no right or wrong answer. It's up to the commission based on what it feels those guidelines provide. If the guidelines are not descriptive enough, I mean, we need to work on those. I think they give us a clear understanding in terms of how these things should be mitigated. We're here that, it is an accessory structure that has a sizable footprint. We've had sizable garages in there. It is an accessory structure that has a second level. The property next door, they have a mezzanine according to the permits in their structure, but it's mitigated by being designed to be within the roof of that structure. And I think that's where it comes down to making that decision. I think the property is permitted an accessory structure. There is nothing in the code that prohibits the having a studio, an accessory dwelling unit, or a secondary type of unit in there, so long as it is family that is utilizing that property. I'm not saying that you could put something out for rent in any way. That is not permitted by code, but the code doesn't say you can't have a structure like that when we have several through our community that are integrated either within the houses or within a detached structure itself. But it is, how is this height being mitigated? And I think, you know, we've been asking for the streetscape. We've been asking for cross sections to take a view. And I think the detail is there. And I think if you look at the streetscape that's provided and you look at the primary home and how the second level, you know, as we've been talking about square footage, is integrated within the roof structure. And then you look at the accessory structure and it is two distinct floors with the roof, is how is that compatible, you know, within the lot itself and then with the surrounding properties. And again, there is no right or wrong, but what steps and measures have been taken in the design to mitigate that aspect of it. And I think that's what it comes down to in there, and for the commission to take a look at that. Again, we had the petitioner. I'm sure there's additional members of the public that would want to speak, but I think it's time for the commission to take a look at this in there. I don't have any issues with a two-level accessory structure in there. I do have issues with the design of this two-level accessory structure. When you consider the guidelines, when you consider, is it compatible? Is it mimicking some of the design of the surrounding? Not looking at, it has to look like the neighbors, but it should accentuate the existing house in there. And you could go into quite a bit of discussion. Well, you know, if this was a 400 or 800 square foot, you know, one level garage, you know, does that have to look like the house? I think we make attempts that, you know, whether it's brick or siding, that there is something to mimic in there. Do we always look at the roof slopes or not? I think the commission evaluates that on a case by case basis. Does it stick out? Or is it too low? You know, is it a flat roof compared to a whole bunch of peak roofs in there? It is a subjective process. However, again, what ends the subjectivity is that there is at least a majority of the commission that has a view or perspective of whether it does or doesn't.
Thanks, Carlos. I think that was a good overview for everything and kind of going through all the different issues. Does any members of the commission have any questions for Carlos?
Carlos, I guess you had mentioned you had concerns overall with the design. Is it, I guess, kind of you echoed those, or is there anything else specific that we're missing in your concerns?
No, I think, you know, with the perspectives that are provided, with the streetscape that was provided, I think that gives me a fuller context of how to assess and evaluate how that site fits in with its, not within the site itself and within its surroundings in there. And it doesn't necessarily have to look exactly like the other structures or things like that, but it's like what in it is it taking, what elements of the principal building design is it taking to flow over in there. And that to me, that's where I struggled, because I think, again, I don't have any issues with a two-level accessory structure. I think we have to address that through code if we want to put a cap or so in. But if you're going to do a two-level accessory structure, you have a 1.5 story principal structure, you know, what did you do to try to get that reflected?
Yeah.
Again, I think they can do a two-level accessory structure here that mimics some of the principal structure and how that is designed.
Okay, anyone else? I think it's time to bring the petitioner up, see if he wants to go over any specific things that have changed or he's highlighted.
Good evening, everybody. Nice to see you all again. My name is Ilya Edelman of 820 North Price Road, Olivet, Missouri 63132. I submitted a statement with the packet that goes in pretty long detail into kind of a supporting argument for this structure. In respect of everybody's time, I'm not going to go through every point in there, but I do want to hit on some highlights, and especially having heard Carlos's statements, there's some information that's directly relevant to that. First off, there have been some figures thrown around throughout these meetings that were somewhat inaccurate, and we produced a set of floor plans with exact measurements that we submitted that you should have in your packets as well, that show the actual sizes of all of the structures, including the existing house. I think at the last meeting it was mentioned that the county website lists 1,500 square feet. That is just not accurate. So I'm going to go through some of those points just to establish this idea of subordination. The proposed structure has 921, if we round up, square feet of living space. The house has 1,809 square feet of living space. The proposed structure has a total square footage of 1,889 square feet. The house has 2,873 square feet. Again, there are plans submitted that show all of these measurements. The height, the garage is lower than the house. Both in absolute height and it's also lower in grade. So if you look at the rendering that's up on the screen right now, that is to scale. So that's from the street view. And as you can see, the garage barely peeks out to the side. And actually the rendering is rotated a little bit. So, we're not trying to hide anything. If you look at the house head on, that amount of garage that's visible is even less. Again, going back to this idea of whether or not it is subordinate. Over half of the proposed addition is a garage, which is by definition a subordinate use to the principal dwelling. The residence on the second floor is a single bedroom, single bathroom unit, whereas the house is three bedrooms and 2.5 baths. The main house is a basement. The proposed garage is on a slab. There is no basement. The proposed structure is located well behind, as you can see, according to the rendering, well behind and almost entirely obscured by the main house from the street view. So I think I wanted to get these facts out to really support this idea that, yes, this is in fact a very much subordinate structure, both in size and in function. The second point I wanted to discuss was we have been very diligent about engaging with our neighbors and taking feedback into account. Carlos mentioned, what have we done to mitigate? So some of the things we've done, we incorporated all of the neighbors' feedback during the first round when we first went through this. And I believe they did appreciate that and thanked us during the last meeting for doing so. Some of the major changes we've made, we rotated the structure 90 degrees per their request in order to present the shorter side of the structure to their yard. We increased the setbacks from the property lines. We decreased the height of the structure. We designed all elevations with architectural interests, so they wouldn't be faced with just a blank wall of siding. All of the elevations have either a window or some sort of feature that breaks up that monolithic siding that you sometimes see on the sides of houses. We took the commission's feedback into account and decreased the size of the window that was facing the neighbors, even though I did speak with them and they actually don't have an issue with that. But we did decrease it per the commission's feedback. And we addressed all the runoff management issues with an engineered plan per the commission's request. So I wanted to, make sure that you guys know that we took every step to incorporate every bit of feedback that we got, short of, don't build it. Everything else has been incorporated into the design. Item 3 in my statement, again, I'm going to kind of summarize this because there's quite a bit in there, but The 2024 comprehensive plan doesn't just mention ADUs, it goes on about them for 8 pages. And it underscores their importance in promoting housing diversity, promoting housing access, promoting a changing demographic situation where parents are living with their children, caregivers are living with their parents, and so on and so forth. I'm not going to go into too many details, but all of that is outlined with page numbers cited where ADUs are specifically mentioned as a ideal solution to this problem. The problem in Olivet, and here I'll refer to the pictures that I attached with, it starts with a couple of maps and then there's some photos. You should have those in your packets. The problem in Olivet is that lot sizes tend to be small. So if you require single story structures, or if you prohibit structures on a second level above a garage, you are forcing us to build this. This picture is included in your packets as well. It's a picture from Stoneleigh Towers. And you know, I don't think I have to convince anybody that this is happening everywhere in all of that, where you have these very, very outsized large houses next to modest single level ranch
Do you guys have that?
dwellings.
Yeah,
We
is
don't
that
have-
the one that came in today?
I brought enough for everybody. So the picture of the large stone and white siding house next to the more modest, smaller single story ranch, that kind of development is prevalent throughout the city. And that is exactly what we were trying to avoid. Unfortunately, with a smaller lot size, the ideal place to put an extra living space without creating this situation is above the garage, especially if a detached garage is in the works. So having that option creates flexibility that allows a homeowner or a prospective property owner to build additional space without destroying the character of either the house that they're renovating or the neighborhood as a whole. And that flexibility is going to be key to meeting those points on the comprehensive plan that we just talked about. I think, you know, at some point, Carlos also brought up the question of, you know, why are we doing it this way? A detached structure, again, addressing that changing demographic that the comprehensive plan references, allows for a caregiver parent situation that still allows some privacy for both parties. And, you know, the way I make a living, I run a home care agency. But caregiver fatigue is a real thing, and this allows the flexibility to promote that kind of living situation, which again is called out as a principal goal in the comprehensive plan. Now, my final point that I'll touch on is the character of the neighborhood. I'll bring your attention to the 2 map drawings that I attached. It was brought up at the last meeting that, you know, one of the issues was that maybe, you know, there was some privacy issues or whatever, and that the character of the neighborhood was such that all the houses were lined up in the back. That is simply not true. As you can see on this map, the houses are it's kind of a quirky neighborhood. They're all over the place. They're all different shapes. They're all different sizes. They're all different setbacks. There's, you know, both the house to my immediate north and the house, not the immediate, actually, my neighbor's house to the immediate south is offset slightly, as you can see from the photo that looks like this. This is from my kitchen window. So as you can see, I can see their entire porch and the corner of their house, and then I can see the entire neighbor's house right here. And this is looking directly south. So the houses are in no way lined up in any way. They're staggered. There's another picture that looks like this that shows the view from my backyard. And to be very honest, this is what gives the character its charm. It's not a bunch of McMansions all lined up and looking identical to where you can't tell which one's yours. It's a charming neighborhood that is varied in layout and topography. And that is what, to be frank, attracted me to this property to begin with. We are not doing anything to destroy this kind of character. My neighbors to the north also have a large attached garage. This is the one Carlos mentioned where they have the mezzanine, or like it's like a 1.5 story, and it sits way back there. All right. So again, this is a picture from my back door where you can see that that structure. And then if you look at the other map image I provided of Stoneleigh Towers, you can again see that same situation where houses are all different shapes, you know, set at different you know, protrude into the backyards in different ways, and really create some of that interest that that I mentioned earlier. And then finally, I guess that was my second to last point. My last point is that there is local precedent for this kind of construction, primarily 9044 Wansonia, which is a very, very similar situation, where the main house was built, then a 2-story detached structure was built with a garage on the bottom floor and a living unit on the top floor. My understanding of how that process went, there was some resistance to the idea, but then the property owner connected the 2 structures with a covered walkway, as we are doing, and that satisfied requirements at that point. I'll also bring up the point that Carlos mentioned about what have we done to mitigate the design. And, you know, aside from the points that we already mentioned, the structure is shorter. We made the structure shorter than the main house. We rotated 90 degrees in order to minimize the visual impact for our neighbors. We changed the roof. So the roof initially in the first design was a monoslope roof, which really wasn't in character with the neighborhood or the original house. Then it became just a regular gabled roof, which again made this kind of monolithic siding situation happen. And then finally, we changed it to a hipped roof, which matches the style of roof that's on the existing house and on all the houses around it. We also, as we show in the rendering, plan to use exactly the same exterior materials to make the whole property consistent. So, you know, the addition will look exactly like the current dwelling, both in style and in material. Architectural shingle, same colors, same siding, same types of accents. So you know, we already, Carlos did ask for a streetscape. We did provide that. Again, it shows that not only is the house lower than the main, or the addition lower than the main house, it is also barely visible from the street. So with all that, I just would ask that you know, you guys consider the facts as they are on the ground, and approve this addition. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? Yeah, go ahead. Sir?
We talked last time about the possibility of reducing the window size on the southward facing part of the structure so that it would, you know, maybe where you can't really see out, but you're still getting light in, to provide some privacy. And I understand the neighbors, the privacy concern is not necessarily that big of a deal, but you said that you reduced the size of them, but it doesn't look like that on the plans that we got.
Tom, can you address that?
My name is Tom McGraw, the architect on this, 749 Greeley in Webster Groves. Yeah, there was the window on there was cut in half. The width was half. It was 11, and it was cut narrowed by 5.5 feet. We did not raise the sill at all. No.
Okay.
Anyone else have any questions for the petitioner? Seeing none here, yeah, go ahead.
Just one more question. Can you tell me the age of this, the primary residence?
125 years old.
I thought that, and one of the things that I think is really interesting about this section of our town is that it really does harken back to what this used to look like here. It was farmland, I assume, and given the number of older homes on the street, and I think it's important that we preserve a little bit of that. We're losing some of that along Old Bonham, where, you know, these big lots that felt like you were out in the country. And I would hate to see this house be torn down because it's not big enough anymore for a family with extended family caregivers or grandparents. So I think we need to take that into consideration. I assume that's why you're doing the accessory structure is
That is-
because you don't want to destroy the original house.
That is exactly why we're
Okay.
doing it. You know, this house, when I purchased this house, I knew that it wasn't big enough for my family. But it was charming. It's 125 years old, and the really cool thing about this house is it's kind of morphed over the years. And I even found like some pictures of like baby pictures from the 20s in the house, like under the stairs. And there, I call me a romantic, but like there's something very cool about that. And where we could have leveled the thing, we actually didn't want to do that, but we do need extra living space. And I don't see a better way of doing that than putting it on top of the garage without destroying the character of the house itself and the street view.
But there's one other point is, did you consider, because the lot is so long,
Mhm.
theoretically, you could add an addition, and go really far back,
Mhm.
100 feet, not just a few feet. Did you consider doing the garage and then the accessory dwelling unit behind it instead of,
Yeah, I wondered about that as well, as like one story.
yeah,
'cause-
do a one,
We
since you
did,
have the
we
room to
did.
do it?
So we really actually don't. So we wouldn't, you know, with the pool going in and the garage and the accessory structure. First of all, we tried to locate that on the site, and it's too narrow for that. So we would, because the code requires a 25-foot clearance from for the garage door. If the garage is situated this way, the old garage barely made it, and it was right up against the property line, and it was into the setback. It didn't make that, the 25 feet put it into the setback. So that was one issue. Trying to orient all of that on the narrow lot just did not work out. And then we would end up with like,
Yeah.
you know, a runway essentially. So yeah, there wasn't really a feasible way to do that. In addition, there are specimen trees, like 6 of them back there, and we are just at the edge of where we are affecting those trees. So we're not going to be affecting them, but if we push any farther back, those trees are gone.
Okay.
And those are noted on the survey, which
Sure.
should be in your packet.
I think that's
Very
all-
good.
the only,
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
the only question.
Tim, did you have any questions?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay,
Like to
good.
hear from other
All
people.
right. Thanks, Tim. So we'll go ahead and take public comments on this.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Does anyone in the audience have any public comments? Sure, come on.
Hi, Bill Hanson. I'm sorry, I'm gonna get closer. Bill Hanson, 817 North Price. I wasn't gonna talk, but just a couple things. Carlos, can you go back to the previous diagram you were showing? Just a couple of points. The first, and I don't, is your mother-in-law that's gonna stay there? Your mother, sorry, I want to make sure. So I don't know anything about your mother, although I'm sure she's wonderful. My mother is in her 80s, has trouble walking up and down stairs. And my first concern is what's going to happen potentially in 5 years if she can't go up and down the outdoor stairs. Are we going to come back and say, now we need to add an elevator or something else that then isn't going to keep with the character, but how is she going to get upstairs? Again, maybe she can walk perfectly and that may be a moot point, but if the stairs outside, trying to look ahead, try to avoid that. The second thing is, again, I live across the street and just a little bit north, basically where the driveway is. With the head-on picture, like you can see in the lower left-hand corner, I have no doubt that it's what it looks like. But basically between their house and the house directly to the north without a fence or any block, we can see almost a large majority of the structure. So it's not hidden, it's hidden by the house if you're right in front. But if from our living room looking out, we can see more of it. So it's not just where, it depends where you stand.
Perspective.
Yes. And I guess my third part is, and again, it goes to what was a little bit discussed, you know, I guess with all consideration, just kind of being, I understand he wants to do a lot of things. I don't mean that in a negative way, but when you buy a house, you can't do everything you want. I want a pool. I would love to have a basketball court. I would love to have a pickleball court and irritate my neighbors because I'm learning to play pickleball. But you can't get everything you want. And if it's not the right lot, then unfortunately you just can't always get everything you want. I completely understand a garage. There used to be one there. I completely understand a living space for a loved one or someone you're taking care of. I completely understand a pool. but not necessarily can you get all those things in a lot of this size or any size. Thank you.
Thanks for your comment.
Hello, everyone. Good to see you again. Tim Hellman, 800 North Price, just south of this house. I was at a Ladue sporting event a few days ago, and a good friend of mine, they know that we're having this conversation with you guys, and he said, Tim, do you support ADUs? And I'm like, I don't actually know. There's too many unanswered questions. Like, it seems like there's still a lot of ambiguity of what is an accessory structure. Does this set a precedent? Is 2 levels too tall? Do we allow ADUs when the code seems to be silent on this? And so I was like, I can't answer a question when there's a lot, it seems to be a lot of ambiguity around it. Like, do you support housing? Well, it's like, that's too big of a question. But I know this is a really big building. This is a big building, and it's a big change. You could, as we discussed last time, you could tear down the house and build a bigger one. But there's precedent for that. That metaphorical train has left the station. While the one on Wilsonia, I think it's a false analogy to compare the two. And so I'm asking you guys to not support this for 2 reasons. One, the code on ADUs is silent. It doesn't seem like there's a code, and to move on something when the code isn't, it seems to be very quiet on it or silent, gives me pause. And then the other one is I worry about this becoming precedent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Christina Hansen, 817 North Price Road. As I mentioned last time, the design principles for garage, I will not read them all like I did last time, but one of the points is character of the garages in the surrounding neighborhood. And in Carlos' preliminary comments, he said consideration of neighboring properties and compatibility with surrounding area. There are 3 exterior separate dwelling garages. One directly to the north, which is 20 by 50. It is about 1 1/3 stories high. It is nowhere near even 1 1/2. 2 houses down, so 2 houses to the south, also has an exterior garage. It is a single story, 24 by 24. Diagonal across the street. So we're talking within 1 block. I consider that surrounding area, and I hope you all do too. That garage is a very small 3-car garage, but it is 720 square feet. It was built in the early 1900s. That one is 36 by 20. Again, 3 directly within a block of this house, all single story or a little bit above, nowhere near even a story and a half. And again, consideration of neighboring properties, compatibility with the surrounding area. A 2-story garage does not fit in with our neighborhood. There was a garage there before, absolutely. I love my garage. I completely understand wanting a garage. It was a single-story garage, and I think that is what this should be replaced with. Thank you.
Thanks.
Kate Pishon Hellman, 800 North Price, speaking as just as a resident and as the adjacent neighbor to 820. So my concerns are the same that I've had since the beginning, that the structure is it is very large. It does not, as I look at it, it does not look like an accessory structure that is subordinate. It looks like a building, and the square footage, whether you take what's on the county records or what's been provided, the square footage is at or slightly above the square footage, first and second floor of the garage, the same or slightly more than the first and second floor of the primary structure. To me, that does not say that it is subordinate. The original house does have incredible charm. It's an older home. It's 1.5 stories. This accessory structure does not match architecturally with the primary structure. If it were 1.5 stories, maybe had a smaller second floor, maybe. But it's a box with a roof. And I know that that's matter of opinion. Mine and Elia's differ. And I'm sure the opinions of those on the commission also differ. But I just think that there is a real problem establishing precedent for accessory structures that are this large in size, particularly on lots where, although it is deep, it is narrow. And so the adjoining properties, our property is very close to this structure. And looking at it from the street, from our house, there was an image that was up that showed a rendering looking at it from like our backyard. You can, yeah, that one. So you can see that's standing in our garden. The white house is ours, is my husband and mine. And looking at it from there, it looks like two houses on one lot. And to me, that's not an accessory structure. That is another house. And I think without having clearly established guidelines in the code for accessory dwelling units, approving this structure as it is really putting the cart before the horse in many senses, because we don't have codes that help guide the commission to address the issues that go along with full living unit accessory dwelling units. I'm not saying an office or a bedroom and a bathroom, but something that it is an apartment. And once it's built, while the intent is for aging relatives or visitors, once it's built, whether this owner or the next owner, how they use it, it's hard to enforce. So thank you for all of your time. And I do want to thank Ilya. He has reached out to us, and although it is tense and it's difficult because we have differing perspectives, I really do appreciate the time that he has put to reach out to me and to work with us, adjusting the orientation. And I think we're both just eager to hear where the commission is on this.
Thanks for your comments. Anyone else? Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Arthur Kotets from 7739 Davis Drive. And I'm here for something else, but I do want to comment on this subject. Like throughout Clayton, Davis Place, Clayton Gardens, they built those accessory structures 100 years ago and even these days. And they do allow 1,000 square foot accessory structure. It's either above the garage or single level. As long as you meet the setback requirements, it's not prohibited. And in my opinion, if the neighboring city can do it and we are like right next to them, I think it's not unreasonable to have it as well. And I think I know like neighbors' concerns with the windows and stuff, but a lot of lots, like most of the lots in Clayton, the smaller lots, the neighbors back to each other with the windows next to each other, and it's not concerned. And in Olivet, you see a lot of smaller homes being built. In Clayton, they built bigger homes like in early like 1920s, 1930s, and it's been around. So, and I don't know like the petitioner, but I'm just giving you like as a, as opinion from the side. I think I think it should be within the code. I mean, if accessory structure, city can adopt this code, to have like one. And Clayton, actually, they have 1,000 square foot limit for this type of structures. So that's just my point of view.
Very good.
Thank
Good. Thanks. Anyone else? Carlos, seeing none in the audience, is there anyone in the audience that or online that wishes to speak?
There is an additional person online. I'm not sure if you would like to speak regarding 820 North Price. If so, just show the raise of hands. I think it's in the lower left corner of the monitor.
Bottom middle, actually.
And Chairman, I don't see any.
Okay, good, good, good. All right, guys, this has been a tough one because this has been going on for quite a while. There's been a lot of changes, a lot of different things that have been going around. I'm not sure, people want to further discuss this. We've had further discussions on this. Petrie, I see you nodding your head, yes. So what would you like to, how would you like to?
Well, a couple of things. I think it's important that we honor the 2050 comprehensive plan, 2020, 24. Sorry, I didn't know how much further it went out. 44. That it's been raised, that it is in the general plan. This is an alternative way of providing housing that is affordable. And it's not just a couple of houses. I went around the corner of my house on Old Bonham to Islesbury, the first two houses, gigantic accessory with a garage and a full high-pitched second story. They're all over the place. So in terms of setting precedent, the precedent's already there.
Was
Just
that an
like-
accessory structure that you talked
Yes,
about?
it's an accessory structure. I have a photograph if you want to see it.
Yeah, I'd like to.
Yeah. Here, at the main house is on the right, and it's completely visible from every angle. That's just right around the corner for me, but there are several of them in this area. And I just think it is the wave of the future for affordability for seniors and for caregivers and whomever. And I would hate to see this house be torn down when it reflects the history of Olivet in the area, just because we couldn't get an accessory dwelling unit on top of a garage. I mean, I'd rather save the trees instead of going to, lose them to make this one story. I also think that I don't know how, honestly, you can look at this structure in the back, it's in the back, and say it's not subordinate. Maybe from your backyard seems very large, and that was one perspective, again, where the house is further away. So, it's a distorted perspective, but it's a perspective. But from the front, and that's where we're looking at it from, is from the front, to me, there's no question it is an accessory structure, just like right around the corner from where I live. I just don't buy it. It's a garage with a unit on top of it. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I wish they had done smaller windows on the south side. I think that would have been nicer with comparing it to the main house, because the main house has different sizes of windows instead of these big plate glass windows. So I'm disappointed about that. But overall, I would say that this is the wave of the future. People are going to need housing. And as we all get older, how people get up the stairs is really, that's a non-starter as far as I'm concerned. They'll put whoever in there that can get up the stairs, is my imagination. So all I would say is that we have these houses all over, we have these accessory structures all over, and this is not setting a precedent any different than what's already out there. And so that's my 2 cents.
Go ahead, Brian.
Agree. I think it's an interesting challenge, unique one. Having been on the comprehensive plan, I'm absolutely in favor of accessory dwelling structures and having diversity of housing. I think that's critical and important. I like the pool. I like the garage. I like the living space above it. I like the walkway. My concern is all of them together. I think it's not a question of any of these, like any of those individual. This isn't even coming before us. It gets passed, and it's it's designed and it's quick and it's easy. I think the challenge I run into, and I agree with Peach on it, is like if you had a 4,000 square foot house, this behind it looks more subordinate, and maybe it's not as big an issue. But you don't have a 4,000 square foot house that's larger. This one is shorter, but we're talking a foot. So I guess I would disagree that it doesn't look, looking at all the conditions, subordinate in area, the overall area isn't subordinate. It's actually bigger, and so it's like
From a total.
from a total.
From a
No,
total.
total, not square footage of living.
He gave you the actual.
I'm going off of
It's
Carlos
okay,
this here,
just
but that's fine.
we're-
But yeah, no, no.
We don't need to hash that out, but.
County. Okay, then county might be wrong, but either way, it just the size of it, the 2-story versus 1.5, and this is where it gets subjective. And I struggle with it because I like the principle of it. I actually think we need more housing like this. But it's also, while I struggle, it's unfair. It is unfair to the lot and the neighbor and the neighborhood and the house you happen to buy. Because again, you have a huge property. If you have an acre property and you have a huge house, this maybe wouldn't be an issue. Is that fair? But it's kind of where we're at, unfortunately. So I think that's where I struggle with the precedent is somebody has another house, and they build something just as big as their house or almost as big, and we call it subordinate, and it doesn't, with the neighborhood, to your point, near your neighborhood, yes. Near this neighborhood, not necessarily. So I think that's one of the things I remember joining PCDC was it's about also within that particular neighborhood trying to keep things generally trying to be about the same. And it's not perfect and it's not easy. It's black and white. So those are my struggles with it, honestly.
Yeah, good comments. Go ahead.
So I actually looked at this house 4.5 years ago. When we were looking at houses, and it is a very cute little, I called it like the red farmhouse. And it was very cute, very charming. I'm very familiar with that area. I used to walk Price Road with our dog. And looking at the photo there on the screen, it looks smaller from that aspect, but the other image just makes it look really big. And I kind of am with Brian, that's a garage. Yes, I looked at it when it had a garage. It's that combination of, I think, all of it together, and kind of going back to what Petrie said at the beginning, like maybe if it was further back on the property, so it's not, I don't know, that's my concern is when you look at the other image that was on the screen before, like the crop, this one, yes, like it just seems like I wouldn't want to stand in my backyard and look out and just see a giant extra. I just don't think it fits the neighborhood. Just from walking that section every day for many, many years.
Okay. Tim or Sam, do you want to weigh in?
Yeah, I will. I'll say I'm sympathetic to a lot of the positions the petitioner is taking here and a lot of things brought up. I would much prefer that this house stay as is and doesn't get knocked down and a big oversized house goes on that property. And on one hand, maybe the only way you can assure that that happens is you make sure that the property is attractive enough that the next person that comes along says there's this nice accessory structure with everything I already want on it, and it's got the pool and everything else. Definitely sympathetic to ADUs and their use. I mean, it's in the comprehensive plan, like the petitioner talked about. It wasn't some toss away. That was something that we talked about. A lot of people brought it up. That's no small issue in our community, and it's something that people have expressed a desire in. I do, however, feel, I think similarly to Brian, which is that I'm wondering if all of these things together are too much. Is the garage and the ADU and the pool, everything all together, so large that it outweighs those other benefits? Like you're saying, Rob, I mean, this is one of the more difficult ones that we've faced. So I'm very sympathetic to both parties. I wish I wish the structure wasn't as big as it is, whether it's technically smaller or not. It's pretty darn close. And if you're not getting out your measuring tape, you may not be able to tell which one is bigger than the other, you know, probably depending on where you're standing, you would think one is bigger than the other. So, I wish we had a different design that captured all of these principles and things that we want to encourage, but we've got the plans that we have in front of us, so.
Right, right. Tim, did you want to weigh in?
I agree 100% with Brian. I gotta tell you, he brought up every point that I was gonna bring up, so I'll go with Brian.
Yeah.
Comments.
Well, just to let you know my perspective, when I look at it, especially for this angle, and you see the full 2-story structure compared to the 1.5-story, to me, it just doesn't look subordinate. And it's tough. It's tough. And I think Brian really did kind of sum it up very well. So in relation to the other 2-story structure, I don't think they're comparable. You know, that other one, it did look subordinate, you know, to the other structure that was there.
And again, I'm sympathetic is a great term because I want that ability, I want those housing. And it's not subordinate to the other example just because the other house is huge,
Right.
like the one on the phone. And but it's not that it's not fair, but it's just the reality of the neighborhood and the house that we're dealing with.
Well, if this was the flip, if it was 2-story as the main structure and 1.5-story on the other one, it would, you know, and we had the same sizes. To me, that would look subordinate, you know, similar to the photo that Petrie showed, you know, there. So, well, I don't know if we need to further discuss it. I don't know if we're going to change each other's opinions.
I'd like to be.
We're sort of
we're past that time, unfortunately.
Well,
So.
there's been some, I'm gonna go ahead and take it anyway, because there's been some comments made that are just not true. The total square footage is 1,000 square feet less than the main house. That is a 35% difference. I
Well,
just want to be very clear about that.
I
right?
appreciate that.
Also, this idea of it being too much somehow with the pool, and the only bit visible above that fence is the garage structure. So the pool's not visible from anywhere, from the street, from the neighbor's yard, from anywhere.
We're talking about the structure.
Right, but it's been brought up that, you know, we like this, we like this, we like this, but we just don't like them together. And that point is confusing to me because the structure is the only thing that's visible in any way. So that's an issue. And then finally, I'd like to ask the commission to explain to me how it's equitable that a larger plot is allowed to build more or bigger structures. I think I can't cite it, but in my research, I do remember the comprehensive plan specifically mentioning that lot size should not determine livable area, that is a inequitable way to view housing. And I know for a fact that other municipalities have that specifically written into their code, that a lot sizes should not, aside from like setback requirements, a lot size should not be the determining factor in how much living space a residence can have. And then finally, I would ask the commission to explain to me, you know, I wasn't aware of the other structures that Ms. Powell brings up, but how, you know, those are allowed and this is not. I don't see a significant difference. The Watsonia Court structure, there is a little more, there's maybe like 10% more differentiation between the main house and the subordinate structure, but it is a full 2-story structure. And then finally, this argument about 1.5 stories and 2 stories, my house is 1.5 stories. It is taller than this proposed structure. So are we just talking about sloping the roof a little more to reduce the living space on the second? I mean, the character is identical. So we're just arguing about the angle of the roof here, calling it 1.5 story versus 2 story. My house has the living space incorporated into the roof. It is the house is taller than the structure that we're proposing.
We understand.
So I'm just not understanding, I'd like the commission to address how those things, specifically the idea of equity and the idea of precedent. Clearly this exists throughout the city. And these structures are large. So that's confusing to me. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. I'm not going to get into discussing the equity issue. I'm sorry. How those codes were developed ahead of time, we'd have to go back and look at. Was I on the board at that time? I might have been, but how that specifically, those items were addressed, I'd have to go back to the notes and really see and understand, rather than making an offhanded comment like now, which may not be truly applicable. Carlos, if you have any light that you would like to share on it, please do. But
just the couple of things in terms of the use of the comprehensive plan. That is a guiding document for the community to consider for the next 20 years. That is not our zoning code. Our zoning code should do what it can to reflect and to urge and how to implement the goals and objectives or the vision of the comprehensive plan, but it doesn't necessarily have to follow it through all there. And that is a justification. We just adopted the plan. We just integrated a lot of the items into the plan, so they're syncing in together. But we haven't gone into making all the codifications and changes. We have 20 years to do that.
Right.
Whether it's too long or too short, we have 20 years. It's a 20-year plan. I would like to comment on ADUs because I hear that a lot in there. And from a planning profession, I couldn't tell you how many ADUs we have in the city of Olivet. I mean, we have board and commission members that have ADUs in their homes in there. We have been very flexible to accommodate ADU usages. However, through our code, those are restricted for family type use. And I don't think that there's any goal or intent of this council or future council to change that process, because we are aging in place. We are meeting in different environments. What the city has to have a discussion is whether we would allow multifamily use on a single family process to permit an ADU where you could rent it out to somebody completely independent. That is not permitted by code. And I'd say that's forcefully. That is not allowed under our code, and nowhere in our code does it help promote that type of use. But our code does take into consideration, the generational families or or having independent, family to live in the house, and it allows it in different methods. We have a property on Mansfield, has 2 front doors. One is for the mother-in-law, the other is for the primary family, and it's a really nice house. It's a long, elongated house. We have ADUs where the accessory dwelling is in the basement level and it has a walkout in there. We have ADUs like were printed out in Chevy Chase or Watsonia or upper levels. There is no, I would hope that the commission does not consider ADU usage as a reason of how to assess this petition. This is solely about this design and the design that was chosen by the petitioner in there, because we have different sizes of accessory garages right next door. There's one that they said was 20 by 40 or something like that. It's huge in there, but it's also a big house in there. It's also a 1-story in there, and you could see how it's personally, I think it's too big, but it was permitted. But to me, that's why we changed the code to go through this process in there. From my view and perspective, I'm struggling with, it's not necessarily the uses that are incorporated here, the accessory uses that are incorporated here, the footprint that is incorporated here. It really don't, the code is going to govern the numbers, and they're pretty close to maxed out on their numbers. So what you see in footprint is what they can do. I struggle more with the mass in there and trying to make that fit within more specifically the character of the lot before considering the surroundings.
Yeah.
And again, that could be subjective. it is my opinion, and you know, the city pays me as a professional planner to provide you my opinion in there on how you consider it. I believe that there are unique designs, just like in Chevy Chase, that you can integrate this into a mass that doesn't compete with the principal structure.
And I think I agree with you, Carlos, and I think to the point, it is subjective and it's the tough part. And I think, you know, my comment on like whether it's the pool or the walkway or the mat, I agree with you. My issue is the total mass. And my point being that taking all those 4 points individually, you know, I'm all for and actually want this kind of thing. But my thought is if it wasn't the pool, maybe then it becomes a larger thing where we're not knocking down trees if it's in front. And we could still have both as an example. So it's a trade-off. It's a choice. And I think it is a choice of how big it is. And by code, to your point, it's allowed. But so then it becomes a subjective, does it fit with the neighborhood? Is it subjective in the mass? And that's our discretion of that. And you can see we're all challenging with that. I don't think anyone up here is against the concept of what we're trying to do. We love it. Like the concept of it. I bet even the neighbors would, but it's just, does it fit the principle of the neighborhood and that specific house? And while it might be unfortunate that you have to live to the house you're in, to that, you're subjective to that, but that's a challenge.
Okay, I think we're kind of all starting to circle back and saying the same things. Not that that wasn't a good point. That was a good point, but if there's no further discussion, I think we should entertain the motion.
And Chairman, we've prepared, just like we traditionally do, a motion for consideration for the commission's consideration. All motions should be in terms of support for, and then it is in the voting that you determine
Exactly.
whether you do or don't.
I'll make a motion.
Go ahead.
Motion to approve a petition for a site plan, community design, concept stormwater management plan review for a detached enclosed accessory structure, an in-ground pool and pool deck and covered walkway with solar panels located at 820 North Price Road as presented in the memorandum from the Department of Planning and Community Development dated April 17th, 2025, subject to any staff conditions noted therein.
Motion's been made by Brian Lewis. Do I hear a second?
Second.
And seconded by Sam Wallach. Carlos, will you please call the vote.
Commissioner Spiegelglass,
No.
Commissioner Ragsdale,
No.
Commissioner Powell,
Yes.
Commissioner Wallach,
No.
Commissioner Lewis,
No.
Chairman Jurgel,
No.
and the motion fails 5-1.
Thanks, everybody, for going through this. I appreciate it, and I'm sorry that the vote didn't go the way that you wanted. You know, these are tough decisions, as you can see with all of us on the board. You know, so and we're all volunteers, just as a reminder. You know, so. All right, thanks, everybody. We'll move on to the next agenda item. Next agenda item will be item B, which is 546 White Rose Lane.
No, I'll go ahead. Chairman, this was, of course, at our last meeting. There was some concerns expressed by the commission regarding the projection of the garage. There was also some discussion of some options for the developer to consider through that meeting. One of those options was considered and is reflected there on your monitor on the right-hand side, in which it's still a 3-car garage, but you see how they've broken it down in there and reduce the projection in there. So on the left-hand side, I have the old footprint, and you can see the elevation that was provided here. On the right-hand side is the new footprint, and you can see how the garage is 2 doors here and 1 door perpendicular to that, and what that elevation would look like. They've integrated that into the site plans for reference. So they'll still have the stormwater back here, but they were trying to get that footprint and the actual house design plans put together. You have those in your packets now in there, and that have the applicant is here, and Mr. Carswell would like to make a comment also.
Just to provide additional information, I remember that there was concerns about the garage projection cannot protrude 15 feet. Some numbers in response to that is that the updated plans indicate that the front entry, the of the 2-car garage extends about like 2.5 feet off of the front building elevation. And then the 1-car garage comes off about 12 feet off from that. So it's, they're taking into account that 15 feet and then limiting it by having these 2 different projections at different feet.
Great.
Yep.
Thanks for the clarification. Okay, Carlos, anything else?
Nothing.
No? Any discussion or any questions from staff or from commissions to staff?
I just want to make sure I'm understanding this. The house on the left is what was proposed and we discussed last time, correct?
Correct.
And now we're having a 2-car garage face the road and a 1-car facing the original direction. Am I understanding what I'm seeing right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I actually, and I remember commenting this one. I like the one on the left design a little better. I like the one on the right too. I think it looks very nice, but I recognize the concern. It's again precedent. It was beyond 15 feet. We got to be careful because it may work with this one lot, with this one corner, with this one turn, one view.
Right.
But we're trying not to do that for everything because we don't want to go one by one. So I appreciate the fact that they made an adjustment. I think it's a creative adjustment. It still looks wonderful. So, yeah, that's how I look at it.
Yeah, I think it looks pretty good.
Yeah.
I think this was a great compromise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Uh,
I'll make a motion.
Does the petitioner want to come up and speak at all?
I'm sure. You don't seem sure if you want.
Wait a minute, take the win.
Yeah, well, the mic, please.
Hi, Arthur Cotes from 7739 Davis Place. Yeah, we basically kept the house unchanged. We just disconnected the garage, even like mudroom, everything like house stayed the same. It's just basically reconfigure the parking spots, put a 2 front.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think honestly, I mean, I like that current proposal better than previous one. So
Okay, good.
it's actually seats have bigger. Thank you. It has more backyard space now. So
It looks great.
thank you.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
thanks. All right, appreciate it. Any public comments related to this agenda item? Seeing none in the audience, Carlos, will you check online? Oh, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to make a comment and I'm not going to beat this dead horse too much more, but in the first drawing, I don't know if you noticed, but there is a second story on that garage with the window, and
No.
it's gotten considerably smaller. You see the window above the garage on the first photo, and nobody's mentioned that.
It's attached.
Yeah, okay, so it's attached, but it's functionally the same thing, right? Okay, that's all my only point. And so now it's a much lower, looks like a much lower roof overall. No living space above it.
Is there living space? Was there originally a living space above that or just attic space? Yeah. So no living space. Okay, Carlos, should we check online to see if there's anybody?
Excuse me. If there's anybody that would like to speak in regards to this agenda item, please show your raise of hands. I think it's on the lower left on your monitor. I don't believe there is. I think they're here for a different agenda item,
Okay.
but
good,
just
good.
in case.
Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Go ahead.
Motion to authorize the approval of the petition for a site plan, community design and concept stormwater management review for a new single-family home at 546 White Rose Lane is presented in the memorandum from the Department of Planning and Community Development dated April 17th, 2025, subject to any staff conditions noted therein.
Motion's been made by Brian Lewis. Do I hear a second?
Second.
And seconded by Laura Ragsdale. Carlos, should you please call the vote?
Commissioner Spiegelglass,
Approve.
Commissioner Ragsdale,
Approved.
Commissioner Powell,
Approve.
Commissioner Wallach,
Approved.
Commissioner Lewis,
Approve.
and Chairman Dragell.
Approved.
The motion passes 6-0.
All
And
right.
accepting the petition process, there are some conditions that were outlined in the staff report. We'll work with the petitioner on in terms of finalizing the site improvement plans and such, and then the traditional mitigation requirements that we provide to all new homes.
Good, good, good. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to 15 Bon Air Drive. Carlos or?
Chairman, real quickly, we are requesting deferral of this petition as the subdivision trustees are trying to work with the petitioner regarding some of their indenture criteria and such. In my discussions with the petitioner, and also we have a representative of the trustees. We appreciate you being here. And it's a tough job for an individual. But it looks like, you know, the discussions are going well. We hope by the May 1st meeting, there'll be some resolution. I think there's been some changes that have been incorporated by the developer that are closer to the goals of the trustees, and I think he's been cooperating in good faith. If at any time, though, you feel that has not been, it would be good for the commission to know in there. But the city does have an obligation eventually to take consideration of this, being that it's a fully completed application.
Good, good, good.
So,
okay, great.
And again, would you like to speak or just introduce? All right.
My name is James DeCoster, 10 Bon Air Drive. I'm a trustee of the Homeowners Association, and I think Carlos summed up where things stand. We are working with the builder. We have, with the first plan, we have raised the issues that the neighbors felt needed addressing and presented those to the builder. He has come up with a counter proposal to incorporate some of these ideas, and we are going to send these new proposal to the neighbors to have them vote on it again.
Good, good. Thanks for the update. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. That being said, we'll go ahead and defer that, and then we'll move on to, well, we don't need to take public comments for that, do we? I don't think we need to do. So Carlos, by chance, is there anybody who's online, was related?
Yes, we have one representative online that's the petition over 9417 Ingle Lane.
No, I was talking, before we move on.
Not to talk in regards to.
Yeah, before we moved on, I just wanted to make sure if there was any public comments, but we'll defer that and move on. Okay, we'll move on to item 4, new business, item A, 740 Payson Drive.
Good evening, Commission. It's good to be back. So tonight before you is 740 Payson, which is a new home. It's subject to site plan review, community design review, and concept stormwater management review. Upon our review, some of the primary concerns that stuck out was just that there is a depth deficiency, and that it's a very narrow rear yard to use. The petitioner is planning on putting a finished swale or a primary swale in the backyard, but that's gonna just a primary concern is that then there's less rear yard usage space, but it also does address the stormwater concerns by putting that swale. Stormwater management just along the rear yard, because you can see how drastic the grades drop on the western side. This location, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Payson, but this particular property is just along the walking trail that runs right by, we'll just run right by the west side. So you can kind of see, I don't know if you guys have been on that walking trail, but right where 740 is, you can see kind of where that drastic grade change happens. Also, this is just an ideal example of how the lot was just undertreated with the poor health of the trees at the time. The petitioner is planning on taking out majority of the trees, but in your packet, you do have the tree protection plan, and it's pretty extensive in terms of, and it's also in front of your dais. So this is, staff thinks, or is under the impression that this is a good example, and it's a very different example than some of the tree protection plans that we've seen before. And this actually takes into account all of the renderings of what they're getting rid of, as well as what they're proposing. We will have to go through again, of course, and look at the species list, just, what was submitted as, if they are considered as part of the Missouri Botanical Gardens list of trees. but that's something that we can do administratively. But then this is just, we wanted to bring this to your attention as a good example of a landscape replacement plan. Some more information just about the property. In terms of like the community design review, tree preservation that we already talked about that. In terms of materials, staff's judgments that like the minimum front masonry is over that 50% and that's been met. And then other those concerns, the plans comply with the design principles of the Olivet redevelopment design guidelines. And in terms of stormwater detention pit provided by code is going to be located within the front yard of the home. And then staff asked for clarification on what practice is being utilized to redirect the water on the western side. And then the petitioner noted that they propose installing that swell that will run along that western property line.
Right.
The petitioner is present to answer any questions too related to 740 Payson.
Okay, fantastic.
And Chairman, if I can add one more thing, one thing we would like the commission to focus and take a look at and discuss is that backyard. This petition requires site plan review because there is something substandard about the lot size. And in this case, it's the lot depth. Typical lot would be 150 feet. This lot's 125 feet. So it doesn't have the typical yard depth that a traditional lot does. It shares the same type of front yard setback. So that kind of, again, given that you have a lesser of a lot depth, but you got the same type of front yard setback, you're pushing that house and that footprint back and you're squeezing that backyard. And while the lot meets the setback standards of the code, you can see that backyard right here. And the concern from our perspective is the usability in there, and for our future resident having a usable backyard. And there's quite a bit of a drop here. And typically when we get a new owner, the first things they want to do outside of a fence is place a pool, place a deck, place a patio, and have a backyard. And in this case, it is pretty tight. There's not much of a backyard. I think the home itself is really nice. It's a nice design. But I really think that the commission, if we had that extra 25 feet, this would be perfect. But we don't. And therefore, I think it behooves the city to be concerned about the usability of that backyard and to work with the petitioner if there's other means to push those contours back and figure out that they have a more, some flat portion of their backyard for future use.
Carlos, can we look at a Google Maps of the existing property? I'm trying to get a feel for what it looks like.
So does the trail runs on the downhill slope of this is the elevations.
Mhm.
This is what you would see if you were standing right.
That is correct.
So they do have there's a lot of open space on the trail. Might make up for the lack of backyard. It's suggesting.
So as Commissioner Petrie had identified, so here's the trail that's on the southern side, correct? And then this is the existing home here in this area. What's difficult to show you is the terrain towards the back, because it was I don't want to say it had a lot of shrubbery and trees in there, but a lot of them had not been maintained for quite some time. But there is a good drop back here in the way these subdivisions are set. You have, they kind of tear down in there. And the concern here is that tier is getting pretty tight within what's left of that backyard. And it may be something okay, but understand too, part of that design incorporates a swell system that has to work, or else the water's going straight to the neighbor. And that's the concern, is like the future homeowner coming in and like, I want a flat yard covering the swell, and all of a sudden we have a situation we created where because of the lack of depth.
I'm confused, Carlos. If this is the elevation, there is no house next door. There's the trail is next door.
It would be the house that would be directly behind.
Behind it. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I
So-
just wanted to understand.
Let's take a look here.
Have you talked to the petitioner about that and kind of what their thoughts are?
No, we kind of go through these as we're getting the we've kind of changed the process in terms of how the plan submissions are coming in. So it makes it difficult in there until we go through the review. But here is a grade elevation here where you see that drop in between those two. And we'd like to hear the feedback on the petitioner. He is here of if there are other options to make sure that they have a usable backyard.
Okay, let's bring petitioner up.
Please press it one more time.
Doug Cohen, 1025 South McKnight. This house, I've built this house, I think 4 or 5 times in the city here. I lived in this house design on Avon Court and 808 Avon. I had a backyard that was drastically, I would say, smaller than this, and had 2 kids. This house is pre-sold to Mr. David Wells and his wife, and they've gone through major meetings with my architects trying to get their dream house together, and they have it. They're looking for a small backyard. They're looking for a well-manicured backyard. And I believe the house behind us sits higher, if I'm not mistaken. The watershed will go to the, what is that, south. So I don't see any detriment to this design other than we're taking the worst house in the neighborhood that has been an eyesore for probably 40 years to the best house in the neighborhood. And I'm looking forward to doing that.
Does anybody have any questions? Do you know what Carlos was talking about, that swale and everything?
Yeah. Oops.
How big of an issue is that swale when it was?
You turned it off again.
Oh, sorry. You know, in this business, I hire the engineers. Vols, well-respected, does all my engineering. They, in turn, turn it over to the city, and there's a negotiation. I hardly even pay attention until it's done, and then I implement it. I'm only as good as the people that I hire, and I'm sure when we submit the plan, if it's already, I guess it hasn't been submitted, the site plan, right? Or
That's what we're going through, but the way we changed the process.
explain that to me.
That's what we're going through right now. But given that the revisions come in and then we're required to schedule you within a window, it puts us into a
But
position.
so when my engineer, so it's somewhat of a new process, just so I understand it. So my engineer gives it to you, your group, right? And then this group has rebuttal, or you internally have rebuttal?
We asked for the commission for some guidance in.
You don't critique it before it comes here?
No. No.
We usually have the stormwater
Yeah.
consultant. That's.
Yeah.
I got lost in the mumbles here.
So what we're saying in terms of instead of delaying the application to get this resolved, we bring it towards the commission and then ask for those conditions or considerations.
Okay.
In there.
But so do you have a stormwater consultant anymore?
Yes.
Has he seen this plan?
Those have been forwarded, but we haven't received the comments yet.
Okay.
Again, because the revisions didn't come in till, was it a week or 2 ago? Yeah.
Regardless, it's going to be an awesome house. There's not going to be any detrimental water runoff to anybody else. And Mr. Wells and his wife will be coming from the city, and they're going to be here until the end. And it's going to be an awesome house.
Well, we're glad, sir, we're glad that you've chosen to come to all of that.
So
we
we-
appreciate that.
So Chairman, we just want to make sure that the clear, because right now within the condition here, again, there are no issues with the structure and design of the house. I
Right.
think it's a very, very nice house. And this is was a pretty upsetting property in there. And it was very unfortunate it wasn't cared for. And we're glad it's getting redeveloped. But I think we would like to work with the petitioner. I should have stated that that way. Because we foresee the way this backyard is designed limits its viable use for the next resident.
What do
in
you
there.
think's potentially going to
If
happen?
I look at it, it would be this 688 contour. In order to make this grade work, they have to bring it all the way into the property and around and turn it this way and go through that. And this property owner is lower. They're at a 681 in there. If this fails, or if it ever gets covered up, that water is going to just, that flow is going to just continue down backwards, where there is an opportunity, of whether there's a retaining wall or something to help kind of guide that and make that flow go westward, as opposed to trying to create a swell to
Go
channel
westwards towards the street?
no, towards the trail here, which would be towards the south end.
Yeah.
Carlos, sorry.
Go ahead.
Just an added point. So once we get to the final stages and we see the actual grades that we're instructed to follow, if I feel and the customer, we get together and we have, if there is issue with it, then we add yard drains.
Okay.
Yard drain. Whoops, yard drains.
Yeah.
Carlos, if we review this and they put it in a way that we like, and then at some point in the future, the neighbor behind comes to us and says, we've got a problem with drainage, and someone goes out and looks at the property and turns out that the swale was covered up, does the city have any recourse?
It's difficult. It's difficult to try to negotiate the changes because you have different parties that are involved. In this case, the house is pre-sold, so the gentleman's here and knows that there is concerns of how that's going to work and impact and there. To some extent we do, but it is a difficult after the fact to show that.
But and we can never change what people do with the gradings.
That's where it
afterwards.
becomes
right.
I mean, we got to go with kind of the plan that's in front of us and what's going to make the most sense. Otherwise, we'd have to have. I don't know. We could.
Carlos, is your feeling on this that because of the small size of the backyard, there's an increased risk that the backyard is going to be tampered with post approval? Is that the
it
concern?
becomes, you start seeing all these lines which are new contours tighten, and meaning I have more slope. Slope equals velocity when it comes to stormwater, which means there's push. Now it is all grass, but one of the bigger comments we get from property owners or adjacent to new construction is more like, well, while the mechanisms are there to hold the stormwater from the house and the gutters and all that, it's like the slope was not like that before though. In there, and whether that created a situation or not, it does increase velocity. It's probably still the same amount, but that velocity can cause a little bit more changes to what was experienced prior. And there, again, it is trying to make sure that if this is in place, or if there are integrated systems in there to help continue that water through. The big concern would be, based on this, that once you walk off that patio, you have roughly 5 feet before you go through a 1, 2, 3, or 4 foot drop.
And Carlos, I mean, looking at your suggested conditions for approval, I'm hearing you, not so much that you're obviously opposed in any way potentially moving forward, but that if we move forward, that your ask is that we authorize that there has to be that final stormwater site improvement plan, working with stormwater consultants, and that's what you're asking for.
Yes.
Okay, and you're just calling attention to it. Obviously, the design of the house, fine, but that we want to make sure that staff has the authority and power to then continue those conversations to make sure we're at a suitable, comfortable place.
Correct.
All right.
Yeah,
it's fair.
I think it's fine for staff to work through that unless there's an issue or anything like that. So, good. All
Can
right.
I just ask a question of Carlos about this? Yeah. Because Missy and I were just chatting just a little bit. Is there any reason why the house couldn't be moved forward more to give more of a backyard? Does it have to line up with the house next door?
No, well, no, it doesn't have to line up with the house next door, but it does have to, it can't exceed the required front yard setback.
Okay.
And actually the first petition we had that issue that was adjusted in there. And again, the footprint of the house is in full compliant with the setback, but it is a narrow lot to try to put that in there. And I like this house and this design. In there, but it again, because I don't have that full depth, it really narrows what has to go outside of that to accommodate that house.
Yeah.
And that's the concern, because the grades in the back, while again, within their yard, it's going to drop about 5 to 6 feet. If you look at these contours here, to the neighbor in the back, it's almost 9 feet of dropped to their patio.
Is this small backyard unique on this street to this particular
Yes.
property?
Mhm.
This
And
is
you
the
can-
adjacent one to
yeah.
the left.
And you
Looks
can
like it's
see
also short.
this house here, this is the brand new house in there, but it doesn't have that same depth. And then again, I'm not concerned about this footprint in there, but that footprint is giving me less opportunity to work than the footprint here. Okay.
Okay, well, I think let's let our stormwater consultant talk it over and kind of work with them. If there's, are any issues, I'd say bring it back, but it'd be nice to kind of move on.
All right.
Good. And sir, again, thanks for coming to all of that. We appreciate you deciding to move here. So, very good. All right, so do we have any public comments onto this item?
I don't believe so. I believe everybody's identified is on the next agenda item.
I don't see anybody in the audience. Okay, good. So do I hear a motion?
Bear with me one
I'll
second,
make
get
a
that.
motion
Good.
if I'm reading it right. I'd like to make a motion to authorize the approval of the petition for a site plan, community design and concept stormwater management review for a new single-family home at 740 Payson Drive as presented in the memorandum from the Department of Planning and Community Development dated April 17th, 2025, subject to any staff conditions noted therein.
Motion's been made by Petrie Powell. Do I hear a second?
Second.
And seconded by Sam Wallen. Carlos, you please call the vote.
Commissioner Spiegelglass,
Approve.
Commissioner Ragsdale,
Approved.
Commissioner Powell,
Approved.
Commissioner Wallach,
Approved.
Commissioner Lewis,
Approved.
Chairman Dragell,
Approved.
and the motion passes unanimously.
Good. Okay, we will then move on to new business item B, which is 9417 Ingle Lane. Jack?
Good evening again, Commission. Before you today is 9417 Ingle Lane. It is a residential addition. Just some information. It's going to be a 1,296 square foot addition off of the rear. The one-story portion is 982. It's a square foot framed addition, and then they're also adding a 314 square foot covered patio off of the rear as well. We've been working with the petitioner in terms of getting the updated plan set through the review. In terms of that, what has come back, there were no staff concerns related to this addition.
Good.
And no concerns related to tree preservation. They're not doing anything regarding the 2 trees that are in the back. They're far enough away that there's not going to be an impact. So from my review to you, there's no staff concerns. If you have any questions, I can answer them. The petitioner is also on, as well as both of the homeowners.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Thanks.
Jack-
Carlos, I do have a question. Did you look over this to make sure Jack was doing?
Absolutely.
He's been attending a lot of baseball games.
Whose games?
Hockey.
Is it, I'm curious, Jack, is this only becoming, if you have no conditions, it comes before us only because of the size at that point, or?
I think so. Yes, but also just throughout the review process. I think Carlos was talking to me about that there's a process that if there's no staff concerns, there's a way of doing that, but we just wanted to bring it before you guys to see if there were any other comments and concerns related to it.
All right.
Yes.
Appreciate it. Anything else that you wanted to point out or bring to our attention or anything like that?
I just think that they have taken a lot of the comments throughout the first process into consideration and then have made those revised plans and have actually addressed all of the staff comments regarding the minimum submission requirements and then have put those onto the plans. So they've been very, at least the petitioner has been very helpful in terms of and accommodating with working with staff to address those. And then as a result, this is why we have something that comes across as no concerns.
Very good. Do we have any elevations?
Yes, sir. There should be multiple within the packet. There are two different sets. We asked for one of them without the keynotes notation on them. But then if you want details, there are also elevations with the keynotes where they have like, you know, all the 1 through 40, where it's like, this is the material they're using. This is going to be a door. This is going to be, you know, what the type of stuff you normally see on the architectural plans. But we asked for some of them that weren't, you know, as cluttered. So you could also see the elevation without the keynotes on
That's
them.
great.
Yep.
That's great. Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
And see that Taylor does have her hand raised.
Okay, that's, well, before you leave, does anybody on the commission have any questions for Jack?
Just to note before, regarding all of the properties, notifications were sent out within the 300-foot radius for all the properties. We've got no concerns related to this addition and no concerns related to 740 as well.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay, I think we should bring the petitioner on.
Okay. Ms. Huston, I'm going to promote you to a panelist. You'll be transferred over, and then I would need you to turn on your mic and also your video would be appreciated.
1 second, I'm setting up the camera.
We can hear you and we can see you. Thank you. ma'am.
Okay. So yeah, hi, I'm Taylor Houston with Agape Construction, and we're working on 9417 Ingle Lane. This is a kind of wrap around the back, a little bit on the side, 1-story addition, just to give this growing family some more living space as their kids are going to eventually move upstairs as they're growing up, and the parents would like to move downstairs so that they can live their lives downstairs, a little separate from the kids and age in place. We're kind of growing a mudroom off the back of the house, and then there's kind of this hallway situation so that we don't infringe on any of the existing living space. That's what connects to that covered porch area out the back. That's kind of the gist of it. We thought that it looked pretty balanced from the front of the road since they have a 1-story garage. And since it's 1 story in the back as well, it's kind of a nice step down into the landscape. Otherwise, I think it's fairly explanatory. We're well within all the setbacks and avoiding as many of the existing trees as we can. There is one tree that's already on its way out. It's in poor condition, as the arborist said. It's struggling a little bit in the front yard, and we're removing that, and we're going to install a dry well per our civil plans, just to make sure that we're not directing any water onto adjacent properties with our addition.
Thank you. Taylor, did you have anything else, or were you done? I thought you were done.
That's fine. Yeah, no, I'm done. Take a look at the plans. Let me know if you have questions.
Yeah, does any commission members have any questions for Taylor? No, seeing none, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Carlos, I just have a quick question. Are there any stormwater issues on this property or adjacent that would potentially be impacted with this addition?
Not that are known or that were brought to our attention. They will be providing a detention and you can on site, and you can see it located here at the lower left of this site plan. But they went through the review and analysis for the addition component to accommodate for that stormwater. To the best of my knowledge, and I think Jack too, no one had reported any issues on the adjacent properties.
Good, good. Just thought I'd ask, just to clarify, in case there were, that we try to incorporate it if we could. Okay, thanks, Taylor. I appreciate that. So at this point in time, I guess we should bring on if there's any, you said there's the owners are on there. Did they want to speak or wasn't? They left the Zoom. Okay.
Well.
We'll take on public comment.
Check.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Ms. Birdie, I'm going to transfer you over as a panelist. Once you're on, you'll be able to unmute your mic, and if you can have your video, that'd be great. Really appreciate it.
Hi, everybody. I don't know if you can see me or not.
Yes, yes.
Okay, sorry, I couldn't be there in person. Like Taylor said, we're hoping to do this addition to our property for a few reasons. We joyfully welcomed our third child in 2023, so we need a little bit more breathing room, but we've come to love Olivet for the community, and we're hoping to maintain as much of the original character of the home as we can while giving us a little extra space with our now 3 children that we hope to raise here. So thank you so much for your time and attention to this project this evening.
Thank you very much. We're glad you're choosing to stay in Olivet. So.
Yeah, we like it.
Good. All right. Any commission members have any questions for the owner? Seeing none. Okay. Any other public comments? I'm looking at the only person left in the. Okay, good. Carlos, is there anybody else online do you think who would be?
Not that I'm aware, sir.
Okay, good. That being said, is there any further discussion?
I'd like to make a motion.
Oh, that would be
If there's
great.
any further discussion.
Please do.
Motion to approve a petition for a site plan, community design and concept stormwater management plan review for a new residential addition at 9417 Engle Lane as presented in the memorandum from the Department of Planning and Community Development dated April 17th, 2025, subject to any staff conditions noted therein.
Motion's been made by Sam Wallach. Do I hear a second?
Second.
And seconded by Laura Ragsdale. Carlos, you please call the vote.
Commissioner Spiegelglass,
Approve.
Commissioner Ragsdale,
Approved.
Commissioner Powell,
Approved.
Commissioner Wallach,
Approved.
Commissioner Lewis,
Approved.
Chairman Dragell.
Approved.
And the motion passes unanimously 6-0. So the next step in the process would be making application for the building permits for their review.
Okay, thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, so we'll move on to item 5, discussion items. Item A, tree protection, preservation and replacement.
Chairman, at this point, we don't have any changes, welcome any public comment on there, but at this point, given the items that were the agenda, we put it just for discussion as opposed to action.
Gotcha. Do we want to have any discussion on the board? Does anybody have any further comments, discussions, ideas? Laura?
I do like the one plan that showed the trees tonight and the canopy. That was really nice. I've forgotten which plan it is now, looking through my 740 Payson. Okay, that one, I like how they showed this packet. I don't remember what packet it's in, but I like how it showed the trees and that it showed the like there's the canopy and that map right there that's on the screen. Thank you, Carlos. I think that shows a good overview. And then in part of our packet, it also then had the trees and they had it broken down as whether it was a native tree or not. Right there. I think that's very helpful, just the way that one was done. So I do like that.
Is there any way we can, try to encourage that, I know this company's been in business for a long period of time and they really do a good job. In fact, I went to high school with the person that.
I don't want the. I
What's
don't
that?
want. Oh, sorry.
Just from Baxter, that's the company that did the drawing.
Yeah,
Is that
right.
the arborist?
The Bill Weiswasser, he was in my class.
Oh, okay.
So, his family, he's part of a second gen, maybe third, I don't know, but he's, but they do a really good job. And I'm not sure if it's just the fact that it's colorized or, but maybe we can take elements of this, to say what the plan needs to include, if that's possible. But I do agree.
I like that it also has like the common name and not just the botanical name, because those don't mean anything to me. But when I look at like, oh, it's a black oak or it's a sweet gum, right? I know those. Like I know, I see it, I can see that tree. Like I know what those are. I know, like I know what a red maple is. I had a red maple in my yard. Like I know those trees versus, the botanical name. Yeah, yeah, that does nothing. So, so I like that part of it as well.
I personally love the canopy, just
Yeah,
saying that. I know
it
that's
does,
difficult to, quantify in things, but visually you see it, which is very helpful. So.
Can I just ask a question about that?
Mhm.
The ones that are not green, they're kind of in red sticks. I assume that that's what's there now? And that what's proposed are the colored ones?
Correct.
Okay, so don't be confused that,
Mhm.
we're gonna have this big canopy. Those are going away. Right, yeah.
Right, but it does give the
It gives,
visual.
oh,
to
absolutely.
understand what's going
Absolutely.
on.
And that's all I was just
All in
suggesting is
one.
don't be, yeah,
Yeah.
all in one, but.
There's no tree over the house is what you're saying.
Right. So I just wanted to make sure that I understood that those sticky looking ones, the non-colored ones are actually trees that are gonna go away.
Right.
So they're replacing them with sort of other smaller trees. Okay,
Right.
that's all I wanted to. But yeah, I think as an example, I mean, is there any reason why in the code it can't show an example of what we're after when it comes to a landscape and tree preservation plan?
And I think that's what we're looking to. I think we've had, there's been primarily two vendors. Different styles, but the report, we're getting a better understanding of the reports and what's being submitted in there. Again, through the code, we can codify what we would like to see or a reflective table in there. And
So like on this, we would have maybe this illustration. And then also the comment about the botanical name versus, I think that would be very important to include because I think most people don't know.
correct. Right now, given that we're trying to draft the ordinance components to this, the arborist reports that have been submitted, now we've asked that they include minimum items that, as we're trying to build collective box on these. This one was the first that we received of this nature, and it was, it was a lot easier to read than some of the other ones that we've seen in there. But the content and information is there, and it's now understanding these, how to direct them to what is the expectation that we would like to see in there. I think they're responding, and what we've heard is like, this is what we submit at such and such community, that. So we've been looking at, trying to create that list of what we want on ours.
Good.
So.
Go ahead, John.
And just to speak on Carlos's point, we're in the process of just planning out how to address those minimum submission requirements in regards to a landscape plan as well, because that's just something that staff just hasn't, had in place as of right now. And then we're going to have to just draft that up in terms of like, obviously there's those minimum submission requirements for stormwater. You have to provide the measurements of your basin, how far it is from the property line and stuff. So that's kind of how the direction we want to go with the landscape plan, but we're staff's in the process of drafting that.
Fantastic. Fantastic. That's good. Okay, if there's no other further discussion, we'll take on any public comments.
Very valid
Thank you, sir.
Turn it on.
Yeah. Keep it on or turn it off again?
No.
I know. Bill Hanson, 817 North Price Road. I'm just here to listen. It was part of the previous conversations I was in. There was a lot of ambiguity, that is because we don't want to make everything codified, but I am curious about the conversation basically and what direction are we going for the future?
Yeah.
And so that it's just more curiosity than having any input at this point.
Well, are you pleased?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think you're doing, and I'm a suck up, because I think you're doing a great job leading and the meetings as well as keeping us unruly people sometimes are, ruly. So good for you. It's not easy to do that. I guess one other thing, since I'm not an attorney, I don't claim to be, but I do work with government contracts all the time. I manage software projects. It is extremely common in our contracts that we have or RFPs for there to be very specific, we need this information. Now that's software, that's not, building, but it is, there is still, that is a precedent that we can ask for a minimum amount of information. I then grade the responses on that. You don't have to include it, but now you're a little bit lower than somebody else that did provide it.
Exactly. Yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Appreciate your comment. All right, great. Carlos, is there anybody else online or is that just Dawn?
That's just done.
All right, good. So if there's no other further discussion, we'll move on to the next agenda item, accessory structure regulations.
Have we talked about them?
I think we just talked about it, but we do have work, that we need to do with that. But I do think the fact that it's after 9 o'clock. Excuse me. I don't think tonight's the right time, or I don't know if we'll be discussing anything more relevant at this time, other than what we've already discussed. So if anybody feels differently, you raised your hand, Sam. What
No.
did you want to say?
No, raise it. Just, I agree. I concur.
Please
Not
step
yet.
up to the mic.
No, we will. But if anyone else, Brian, as your last meeting, did you want to weigh in on this?
I am pro accessory structures in general, but it's like we said tonight, the context matters. And I don't think we're ever going to write a code that covers everything. That's honestly the beauty of this board is this is a group of people who have to collectively decide what's right for the community, and that's not an easy position. So
It's tough to put all that in.
it's too
in
hard, so I'm gonna
words.
leave it. Yeah.
All right, great. Thanks, Brian. I appreciate it. Now I'll take public comments.
Bill Hanson, 817 North Price Road. While it may not be process, I think this is one of those areas that if you could do it like in a special meeting where it wouldn't be with the other agendas, I think it would be good to get more public input, realizing from being on Parks and Rec that probably few people are going to attend, but knowing how important this is going to be to the future of Olivet, it may almost deserve its own working meeting, if that is possible.
I think it's a great idea. I think that's good, or even a survey that we could send out, around just to get people's input. But yeah, I think that's a great idea. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay. Seeing no other discussion on this, Carlos, unless you wanted to discuss anything more. Okay, then we'll move on to item 6, other business, meeting minutes. I see Jack's been hard at work.
I have a question about the minutes. I noticed in the minutes in the past, sorry, I don't have them in front of me, but it did appear as if our discussions, there was comments, the petitioner and staff, but there's virtually no discussion of what we said.
Yeah, I kind of just, do like the general discussion. And then if someone wanted to dive deeper, they could watch the minutes or watch the meeting.
Watch me.
Yep,
Okay, I was
yep.
just curious because it's like.
I used to write them
everything else.
word for word,
Yeah.
pretty well. And then they came out as like 15 pages. So that's why I'm trying to
Okay,
cut down on that.
no,
No, I
it-
totally understand.
It's just weird to see like the whole thing covered and then our discussion part is not in there at all.
No, I understand. Yeah. And that's something that I do need to, stress out some more
Yeah.
with like, specific comments that are, not related to the concerns that come up. For instance, Mr. Spiegelglass's comment, pertaining to 546 with the gravel and the mud. And yet I have yet to do those minutes. So I'll make sure to, go through those and then
Great.
take those comments into
Thank you.
consideration. Yep.
Petrie, that's a great comment though. And I'm going to ask you guys, you referenced, where the file's at, where you could always go get to it. But 5 years, will it still be there? Right.
It should be there as long as the city has a YouTube page. So the video will always be there and the meeting minutes for however long in the years in the past are all uploaded on the website. So as long as the city has a website and the city has a YouTube page, they'll be up.
Okay.
Yep.
There's not an archiving system or anything like that.
There is in terms of, I know for plans, but I just also know that I don't think is like anything in YouTube just in general of an archive. I know that, you're going to be able to go to the page and see every single minute or not minute, but every single video and meeting right there.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right. So that being said, would someone like to acknowledge the meeting minutes? February 2025 meeting minutes.
I can acknowledge receipt of meeting minutes from February 2025.
So acknowledged. Great, great. So we'll move on to reports. Carlos.
Chairman, just a couple of things. There's a couple of news items and events. The big one is, of course, the opening for the Centennial Greenway down here on Dealman. That extends all the way to Five Oaks. GRG will be having a ribbon cutting, and I believe several council members will be in attendance, and then they'll have a variety of different activities along the full trail. May 6th is the Party in the Park at Five Oaks on Warson. And then for the commission, our next scheduled meetings are May 1st and the 15th. And again, it's interesting with the volume of, we have several items already that have been submitted in there. We're trying to catch up on this new review process. So some of these, like the discussions today with Mr. Cohen, is yes, but given the volumes that have been coming in, we just haven't had that ability to get to that point. What has worked though is that I believe the plan product has got better, but then we're in a rush of trying to make do the review and get it to the commission, and that window is pretty tight, and it's something we've kind of been talking about of if there's a need for tweaks and things. We want to see how this works and whether it was just the volume of stuff that's come in because we changed the process, and so we'll update the commission as we go through in there. Tomorrow morning, we have a meeting at Lot 3 at Olive Crossing with the contract foreman, as construction will be starting on that site, and they'll be doing some digging for it's a roughly a 12,000 square foot multi-tenant retail building, which includes the brass tap and the Paris Baguette. So it's been slow in getting the construction started, but it looks like we'll tomorrow, after tomorrow, we'll start seeing a lot of activity there.
That's fantastic.
So yes.
What's the timing?
I think they have commitments to some of their tenants for May in there. So I mean, given the key resources, if they're focused and given the size of the building, we'll see.
The structure of the building, not that they'll be in there.
No,
No.
but still. Okay, I mean, that all came up quick, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good,
And
good.
so across the street with Mr. Cohen's development in there, framing will probably be starting on the northernmost building, and they are they poured the footings for building 6 today, so you'll start seeing forms going up, and he has had already some of the units of those first 2 buildings sold, so we're excited about that that's
Good.
coming through.
How many?
I would prefer, well, the 3. He's told me 3. He secured 3. So
Yeah, great.
So I think once the volume comes in, it'd be better. I mean,
Yeah.
I was happy that at least it's moving.
Yes, yes,
So,
absolutely.
I think we have 2 or 3 new homes for the next that are in the queue for review.
Very good.
So, and I think that's all I have. If there was, oh, and then also I'll let Miss Doty, I know she's in the back, so I'll speak. The Economic Development Commission awarded their business of the years, their annual business of the years. This was the 2nd year that we've done that. The business of the year was the UPS store, and the restaurant of the year was Fallon's. A lot of this is through public voting online, and then the commission, after reviewing the votes and the comments, makes the decisions on these. And in this case, both were the unanimous voters. And then for the first time, the commission had the ability to issue a EDC chairman or EDC committee's award or business award of their choosing. So it's not part of the voting process. It's some type of nomination process in there, and they gave that to The Bridge, which is a resale shop that's located on Bauer.
Great.
In there. So those awards will be presented at the next coffee with the mayor on May 14th, and then the awards are given at a chamber luncheon that same month.
Fantastic.
So I don't know if there's anything, Don, you wanted to add or?
The EDC Commissioner's Choice Award to, there are lots of businesses that don't get the popular nomination. The nominations are really wonderful and they're important. It really shows the support for the businesses, but businesses that benefit the community or contribute to the community in certain ways and are not always going to be the retail, the shiny thing that people vote for. I'm hoping that it gets into the larger businesses. This one though, the retail people were very excited about their community impact. So that was what really drove them to be the commissioner's choice for the first year.
Fantastic. Thank you.
That's all I got.
Missy.
Well, my last meeting. Thank you all for great leadership, great conversation, great outcomes for our community. Brian is councilman-elect. Gratefully, you agreed to take my chair and consider running. I look forward to this younger city council. I'm excited. Yes, I'm emotional. But you guys, I'm excited. So keep up the good work. I hope you see me again. And just, it's been wonderful.
Missy, thank you for everything that you have done, for the city of Olivet, for everything that you've done for this commission. And I know we only see just a small aspect of what you do, for this city. And the city wouldn't be where it's at without your involvement, without your leadership and pushing people to do what needs to be done.
And without you, you couldn't have me. So I can't do what I do without you and this whole community putting me and letting me be in this office for 25 years. Laura and I go way back. She's a beginner before Carlos, but it's been an honor. I will miss the role, but I look forward to the youthful representation on our council. It's so exciting.
Well, I can't wait till you come back as a commission member.
That's a council decision. Love it. Love it. So again, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And before I close this, I do want to say thank you, Brian, for your service on this commission. You've been a steady voice, throughout this whole thing, pushing us to look at different aspects that we wouldn't necessarily consider. Having those side conversations were always fantastic to just kind of help steer where things should go and bringing out ideas that we weren't thinking about. And that is a special thing that I believe that you have done on this commission. And I can't wait to see what you do with this, for the city council. I couldn't think of a better person to be on city council than you. And I'm gonna miss you as being, here. But I do hope you're just a couple of seats over. I do hope.
Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate being called youthful. Obviously 1,000 thanks to Missy, not only for what she's done for the city and commission, but obviously for me personally. So it's really appreciative. I am very excited. It's the last 5 years have been fascinating. So 5 years kind of went by quickly. We had the COVID years, right, with Zoom, and that was fun. But I've enjoyed, because I remember being here the first time trying to figure out where I was, and the first day, and Carlos' first day is like, if you want to sit and talk, and I've learned more about houses and facades and like just materials and grading, because I'm that public person who came in without any of that experience. And now I can talk swells and I can talk, my kids are fascinated. I can talk about some serious math, like things that I never would have thought I would have known. And I've enjoyed it. And so I actually think it's a great thing to be part of it. And this is what spurred my interest to get into city council. And so I thank you all. Again, not everyone knows, to your point, we're volunteers. People, you're giving up your night. So doesn't always go past 9, but it sometimes does. So thank you to everyone for making it a good place to be and for the work. And I know that obviously through review, the work behind the scenes is massive. We get to see the reports after you've gone through the hundreds and hundreds of hours to get there. So thank you as well. So it's a big thank you.
Absolutely. Well, I look forward, yeah. Look forward to see what you're gonna do. That being said, is there any other discussion? If not, we will close this meeting at 9:20.
Thank you, Tim. Good night, sir.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you guys. I was enjoying